We've already talked about the starting of the war in Europe before America entered, but let's talk a little bit more about America's role in the war. And this war, World War II, is going to be the first war in modern history that is fought a lot with airplanes. And here you can see carpet bombing, which was done on European cities, especially in Germany. This is where you attack large amounts of or huge areas with large amounts of bombs. Um, this system was used on sites that were both military and it would bleed into sites that weren't military. Hamburg, Germany was carpet bombed, or as some people call it, fire bombed, and 40,000 civilians died. So civilian deaths were pretty major in this war, particularly because the bombs are indiscriminate. You drop a huge amount of bombs in one area and it's going to kill everybody, whether they're military or civilian. In the Soviet Union, since the Germans could not control the oil fields in the Middle East, since mostly the English and the Americans pushed them out of Africa, Hitler had to break his agreement with Russia and invade Russia to get to the large oil fields that are about 2,000 miles inside Russia. No one has ever defeated Russia. Russia's so big that the Russian people will fall back and allow the very, very harsh Russian winter, take care of their enemies. Again, Hitler used his blitzkrieg, where he mobilized a huge amount of soldiers, 3.6 million soldiers, and they attacked and invaded Russia. A lot of people hated the Soviets and were welcoming the Germans until they found out how brutal the Germans could be, so that welcome did not last for very long. The Russians practiced something called scorched earth policy, and that is where the Soviets, or the Russians, as they retreated and left more territory to the Germans, they destroyed everything, all communications, railroads, roads, forests, anything, livestock, leaving nothing for the Germans to use. And America began pouring in supplies to help the Russian people, or the Russian army as well. Because now, Russia was our ally in this war. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. The turning point in the battle on the Eastern Front, the battle in Russia, was going to be the Battle of Stalingrad. Stalingrad is a picture of it with a lake, was bombed into rubble. It was surrounded, and the Soviets took up positions in the wreckage. It was very much like a video game, where you would fight from street to street, house to house, block to block, and you would fight all day and sometimes never move 2 or 3 blocks, and there'd be snipers in all the windows, and you'd be looking through rubble and bombed out buildings for your enemy. Eventually, the Soviets launched a counteroffensive in the winter, and took the city back. The reason they could take the city back is because the Germans had a supply line that went 1,000 miles into Russia. Well, the Soviets could go into that supply line, block it, so the Germans in Stalingrad couldn't get supplies anymore. It was starting to starve the Germans in Stalingrad. Then they surrounded it, came across the lake, which you see in the top picture, which was frozen, retook Stalingrad, took 90,000 German prisoners of war, killed 300,000 Germans in the battle, and it was a real turning point in the war. However, even though they beat the Germans, the Soviets lost over 1 million soldiers in this battle. A great sacrifice of the Soviet people. Soviets lost more citizens and soldiers than anybody else during the war, mostly because they weren't very well trained and their weapons sucked. Here's a picture of Stalingrad. Looks very much like a video game right there, doesn't it? Here's a picture of some of the German soldiers in the snow, the Russian snow. All right, let's finish this next part of the lecture in the next section.